Back live, Coach Darrell Funk, Stacy Clarity, Alan Carpick here. Welcome to the show, and be our last show for a while. But you guys are getting ready to go, Coach, for spring practice. It's still hard to believe with snow on the ground. You'll be teeing it up in March the 8th, which would be what, Tuesday?
Tuesday,
amazingly. Yep. And welcome to the show. Welcome to West Lafayette and Purdue, and welcome to Purdue football.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Excited to get going. Tuesday, that's right. Tuesdays happen fast. I've been here about 3 weeks. Yeah, we're ready to go. I can't wait to get going.
And you said off the line that it had been your record for being hired at a place before spring ball was 4 days.
4 days when I went to Ball State.
So you are the definition of a quick step.
Yeah, good thing we weren't very complex that year. We had a great tailback, a great quarterback, two good, really good wideouts. We didn't do a bunch, but we did it well. Yeah. But yeah, it was a quick turnaround.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you haven't been around these guys too long either, but what are your initial impressions of your group?
Oh, really positive. I think they've been working their tail off. They're hungry to win. There's an eagerness to learn, and the different things that we're doing, they're all ears, and they've been great, and I can't wait to get them actually because right now we're limited to the 8 hours a week and all that, a little bit of film work, and when we get going on Tuesday, that'll be everything, the drills on the field, the film, the follow-up film, which is always huge, coaching them off tape, but they've been great. I'm really happy to be here with them, and they seem really anxious to get going to me.
You only have 10 healthy guys for the spring. Does that present maybe some challenges, or it's what you have, so you go with
My
it?
record was 7 through most of the spring one year. No, 10. We got 2 full groups. Of course, you have a
Right.
guy out or misses one day or something. You have some challenges, but as long as we have 5, we'll make it work. I might have to ask Coach Hazel for a break or two, and hey, can we rest these guys? But no, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. A lot of those guys are young.
Yeah.
I'll double rep them and get these guys going. Some of the guys that have played a lot of games, they may give up a few reps for the young guys in the learning process. So we'll make it work.
What's your philosophy on kind of cross-training guys? I mean, we've had coaches here in the past who have said, I want them to be versatile. I won't even call them offensive linemen, or I want to call them offensive linemen. I want to call them a tackle or a guard. I mean, do you think that it's important for guys to be able to play multiple positions, or do you want, if you're a tackle, I want you to get as many reps at tackle as you can?
Well, you would love to have 10 guys and have a true backup for each guy, and no one ever cross-trained, but that's a myth. That's a fairy tale. You never get that. If you can get to 7 or 8 guys that are ready to play on Saturdays, not Saturdays in the spring, but Saturdays in the fall,
Right.
And then that means you got to cross-train. Usually maybe there's a swing tackle and a swing guard. Sometimes your second center also plays guard. It kind of depends. And then, but I've never been any place where you didn't have to cross-train guys. And the versatility of a kid. You get used to playing left guard or left tackle, and your body learn all those things.
Right.
But you have to have guys that can cross-train. Now that being said, a few guys you never cross-train. Like for instance, Kirk Barron should never have to play guard. There's no scenario where he plays guard, so why waste those reps? So
Right.
he's playing center, and Roos probably the same way, probably Jason as well. But most guys have to learn to play a couple positions.
Do you, when you meet guys for the first time, is it truly, from your perspective, the slate is wiped clean and they start all together, or do you? I mean, it's hard not to, I suppose, to look at film and say you at least have some preconceived notions on these guys. But how do you try to approach that when you're starting fresh, they're starting fresh? How do you do that?
Well, when you tell a kid there's a fresh start, you'd like for that to be actually the case. So sometimes when some of the coaches who are here might say, well, he did this and this, I go, let's just wait. Now, if it's something I needed to know, that's fine. But I did watch tape. It's hard to completely not know what had gone on before.
Yeah.
But as far as, a guy that maybe didn't get a chance to play and thought he should, or a guy that played maybe sometimes a little bit too much, I'm just trying to look at it, hey, here's where we are now, and everything you do. In fact, I told him before the first 6 a.m. workout that as far as I'm concerned, my work with you on the field starts at that 6 a.m. workout, and we're going from there. So like you said, I mean, there are some preconceived notions and different things, and I did watch all the tape from last year, but I kind of watch that more in the vein of, okay, I think we could do a little bit better job. Boy, he does a really good job here, more so than, well, he can't play or he can't do this. So it's kind of a mix of both.
What trait is imperative for you for a guy to be able to play offensive line?
Well, I don't think you can play offensive line if you're not tough. Now, there's some guys that have gotten away with that in college football and different things. They're incredible athlete, or they play on the edge, or their style of play doesn't lend it that way. But we hit someone every play. You got to be tough. But that being said, assuming a kid is big enough, what is big enough? I mean, I had an All-American who was 285, but he bench pressed almost 500 pounds and could run 485. You know,
Yeah.
if you're lighter than 290, 295, you got to bring something to the table. But that being said, the other thing I like is the athleticism and the quickness and the ability to change direction. I call it unplanned redirection. Our strength coaches probably call it, I think that's an open or closed skill. I can't remember. My whole thing is if I'm going to block that guy and he moves, I got to be able to adjust to him. You know, when you're blocking dummies or sleds, they don't move very far. So, you know, a lot of guys can look pretty good there. But the ability to redirect and catch up to some of these fast defensive players and at least get a piece of them, to me, is huge.
How much from a scheme standpoint, or when you work with Terry Malone and the staff, is there a fair amount of adjustment? Do you have to come in and say I'm open to certain things, or do you intimate what your skill setters or what you want to bring to the table first? I mean, which comes first between the offensive staff and you, or is it you and the offensive staff?
I think it's a combination of your past experiences, some cutting edge football that's out there. And when you've coached long enough, and Coach Malone's coached longer than me, but this will be my 30th fall in college coaching, you've done about every scheme at some point or another. So what it ends up being is, you know, and we have some new coaches in the room and a lot of experience in different things. Most of us had done, say, an inside zone or an outside zone or draws or whatever it is. We'd done it one way or the other. In some ways, in some cases, 4 or 5 different ways. So it kind of ended up being you talk about it, what did you like, what did you not like, and you kind of arrive at common ground. That's kind of where it starts. I mean, I'm a firm believer you can't run football's top 10 plays. You got to and run them well. You might be a jack of all trades, master in none. You got to run 3 or 4 schemes extremely well versus anybody, and then have some B-list plays that you can do when the defense, you know, lets you do that. But I've been really excited about our meetings and the experience in there and the flexibility, because that's the other thing. Mm-hmm. I think in this day and age in football, if you're just going to do it like you did it in 1990 and 94 and 95, this game's going to pass you up. You got to have some open-mindedness to you. But that being said, this game's about blocking and tackling, and that'll never change too. So some of the stuff that's out there a little bit, you know, I got to be convinced that that's the way we want to go. But I think we'll come to a real nice combination of a lot of years' experience that fits our talent that we have in the room and things that our kids can do.
You hear about playing to the strength, you know, of your talent, and it seems like usually when coordinators talk about that, they're talking about the quarterback. You know, if you got a mobile guy, you're going to play a certain way. But can that be the case for offensive line as well? Because when you look at your 2 best players, I'm saying they're your 2 best. Like, you could maybe disagree after a while, but King and Roos, athletic guys, and you guys ran a lot of inside. You talked inside zone, outside zone, but when they did different things, when you got them on the move, especially toward the end of last season, it seemed like you had some success. So is that something that maybe you can do more? Can you take? I guess my question: can you take advantage of a skill set for an offensive lineman and not a quarterback? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fitting your scheme to the players applies to everyone out there. I don't care if you're a wideout, lineman, running back, whatever. Mm-hmm. Now, do you want to have 3 or 4 concepts that everyone can do? And you know, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But just to take guards, for example, some plays there's more pressure on the guards. Makes sense. Inside plays, I mean, there's a lot of pressure. If those guys get blown up, you got issues. There may be not as much pressure on the outside guys. Mm-hmm. Other plays, there's more pressure on the tackles. But that being said, you've got to, I mean, if your kids can get out and run and pull and go around the corner, that's what you got to do. And and they have to have some flexibility too. Sometimes they may not be good at a certain type of scheme. They got to get better. Mm-hmm. But you do. In fact, I drag for years. I've been dragging my feet in meetings if I didn't feel like my kids could do something. Like, for instance, you know, wide zone stretch type schemes where guys, and I had some groups that maybe were more fit to go that way. And I dragged my heels a little bit just to at least, you know, if we were going to do it, at least I was going to, you know, have to be convinced, because I think that's part of protecting your position and being the head coach of your position. But at the end of the day, yes, and if it's running backs, there's certain places where we would have, I really like our running backs, but some running backs maybe aren't outside players, some
Yeah.
are downhill. So it fits every position on the offense.
And you've obviously had some experience in the Midwest. You played at Colorado State, but you've coached at Ball State and at Michigan, in addition to some other schools. But with respect to recruiting, in what areas do you like to recruit? And we have a question from DV asking about what geographic areas will you focus your recruiting efforts on. But have you gotten that far in the process yet of talking about what will you? And what has historically been your strength? Have you been a guy that's been in Chicago typically, or where have you typically tried to recruit the most?
Well, I have coached a lot of Midwest schools, and I've recruited because, when you coach your offensive line, you're going to be going to visit a lot of offensive linemen, no matter where they are, so whether it's Midwest or whatever. So I've had sections of Indiana, I've had parts of Michigan, but I've spent the most time recruiting in Texas, in the Dallas, Fort Worth area, and I'll have a good piece of Texas. Texas traditionally has been very good to this university, and we have some good kids from there now. So I'll be down there. I'll also have Maryland and D.C., and part of Virginia, which is all part of the Big Ten footprint, the latest one since the last 2 or 3 years. So, and then I'll have a really important section of it'd be, I guess, East Central Indiana is where I'll be. So kind of got a little bit of every place. But I think at the end of the day, like I said, and it's a couple places I've been, I essentially became a position recruiter, because when you're trying to take 5 or 6 linemen or 4 or whatever, that's a lot of travel, and you're going to end up going to Florida and seeing a kid, or to Chicago, or so. But those will be my areas that I'll be responsible for, and then I'm sure I'll get out and see a lot of linemen as we go through this.
Do you look at the makeup of this line as generally pretty young? I mean, even though we're talking about, King and Roos, seniors, guys who have been there before. Patterson played a little bit. Sermon's hurt right now, but he's played a little bit. I mean, when you look at this line, are you looking at, like, I have a challenge because I'm coaching a bunch of young guys?
I think it's a mixture. I mean, when you can say, okay, hang my hat on these guards.
Yeah.
They played a lot of football, and then you've got them lining up next to guys that haven't
Right.
played. That, to me, is a positive. Then Ortiz has played quite a bit. Sermon, Barron's played a little bit. So, that being said, we do only have one, we'll have one junior in the class, and the rest are a lot younger. So the answer to your question is yes, overall, it's a young group. And it's a group that needs a lot of development. These kids coming out of the redshirt year, these new kids coming in that we signed and different things. But it's weighted young, the way that I look at it. But sometimes that can be a real good thing. And I have I've played 3 true freshmen in my career, and they've all turned out to be really good players. I mean, if they're ready to go, because they always ask, am I redshirting, whatever?
Right.
I don't know if you're redshirting until you get deep into the year, because if we need you to step in and win a championship, you're going to play, even if it's game 10 or 11. That's the way it is. And that's how, redshirting is not done till the final, your final snap.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's weighted a little bit as a young group. But like I said, they've been excited to get out there and learn, and they've been good, anxious to get them going.
It's been, it used to be 10, 15 years ago, you would rarely see true freshmen offensive linemen play, but that has changed a fair amount. Just changed because of how much more prepared physically they are now, or is that just the nature of the way they're trained up in high school, or what do you attribute that to?
I think it's partly that. The kids have been, the weightlifting programs are more advanced than they used to be. The kids are just bigger in general. I still think, I don't know what the percentage is, 98.7, I don't know, that's a guess, will redshirt their first year,
We'll quote you on that.
Yeah.
Well, one of these
I think
years.
it's 98.6.
One of these years, I'm going to add up every lineman I've had for the last 30 years and say, okay, it's 3 divided by whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, But I think too, because of the decline in scholarship numbers over the years, and we're talking years, every time you cut it by 10 or 5 or whatever, there's more kids that end up maybe going to a little lower level or whatever. And I mean, the days of having, I tell these young kids this, these guys coming out of a redshirt year, and I'll tell the new freshmen here, the days of saying, okay, you're here, we're going to love you up for 2 or 3 years, we'll see you here when you're a junior and you can play, those days are over. Not just for us, for everybody. No one has that luxury anymore. Yeah. And if you get to 15 scholarship linemen with a couple real good walk-on kids that you think can earn money, well, that's a luxury anymore.
Yeah. Question about, and we kind of touched on Cameron Sermon's obviously out this spring. What does a guy like, what does he have to do to learn that offense, and how is his rehab coming along at this point?
He's doing real well, and he's been real attentive. The big thing with kids that are missing a spring, it's really hard. You get bored if you're watching film and you're not on it. And I
Yeah.
told him, you can't be that way. I said, it's a new offense, there's different things. And he's very sharp, he'll be good. But when you're not actually doing it and everything, you don't learn it at the same rate. Now, that being said, he's been a part of every meeting. He's going to be standing with me on the field all the time so I can coach him up there, and he'll be fine. He's played enough football. And there's some things that are drastically different for him. There's some things that have some similarities, so he'll be fine.
How would you describe your coaching style?
Well, I guess this is one way I describe it when I talk to recruits, because it's always a question that come up. You know, if on one end of the spectrum you have the calm, cool, collect, cerebral, the Tony Dungy's, the Tom Landry's, who most of those kids don't even know who that is, they're awesome coaches and they got it done that way, never raise a voice. And then on this end is a screaming lunatic that just cusses and spits on everybody and does all that. And some of those guys get production. I start right in the middle, and the only thing that send me this way are bad attitude, bad effort, and repetitive errors just drive me nuts. Okay, makes a mistake once, okay, fine, okay, makes it again, makes it a third time. That's a poor reflection on me, on him, and the whole system, and it really irritates me, because re-coaches, as I call them, those will get you beat. So anything else, and I'm passionate about the game. You know, they're never going to accuse me of not hearing good or bad after a play in practice. They can't hear me on the field when they play on Saturday, which is good. But, you know, we're going to be active. I'm going to reward them and tell them when they're doing good, and I'm going to be on them when they're not. And but I'm an active coach, and I'm going to be around. And I don't know if that describes it, but that's how I've described it for a long time to these kids, because it seems to make sense.
We're just grateful that you don't watch this show every week, because you'd be a lot closer to the screaming side on that front, but that's okay from that standpoint. Michigan, you've been at Michigan, you've been at the pinnacle of, in a lot of ways, at least in terms of number of people that go to the games. You know, you've coached at Muskingum and you've coached at different places. What have you taken even from your last three stops? Ball State, Michigan, Akron, all different experiences. But what has helped you grow as a coach at each one of those?
Well, first of all, just a general statement. Every single place I've coached, starting from my first full-time job at Muskingum to, you know, being at Akron last year and being a part of the most wins in the Division I history and first bowl game win. But every one of those stops, whether they ended well that year or not, has been a great learning experience. And I've taken a lot of great things, not only from the experience as a coach here, but from the head coach here. And you always pick okay, I like this, I don't like that, and you form it into, and it kind of creates your coaching style. But, you know, I get asked that a lot, you know, is where was your favorite place to coach? I loved them all. You know, Muskingum, my first job, might have been the most purest form of kids enjoying the game. They didn't get a dime to play football there, but they were there every day, and I loved it. And then you know, of course, like I mentioned at Akron last year, the way those kids bought in. I had 5 seniors in there that 2 of which hadn't really played that much. And the way they bought in and bonded, and we went through ups and downs in spring and the year that we had there and all the different things, you know, that Coach Bowden was able to get going there. And every stop along the way. I've truly enjoyed every stop. Some have not been fun the way they've ended, but you know what? Coaches, we sign up for this. We understand that as part of the profession. And there's so many great things that outnumber the bad things in this profession. And I got to pinch myself every day. And I tell recruits this too, that I get paid to coach a game, be around 18 to 23-year-old kids, recruiting all around the country, talking football, and being a part of great academic institutions like Purdue, and having a chance to coach in college football is awesome to me.
How did you end up here? Did you have connections with Darrell Hazel previously?
I met him probably 1990.
Okay.
When he was coming back to the Alma. He wasn't coaching there, but he had come back, I think, to coach a clinic was the first time that I
Okay.
met him. And then I just casually known him all throughout the years. We have a lot of common friends that we've worked with, which was also the case with Coach Malone. I never worked with him, but when you do this long enough, you've either worked with someone, it's impossible not to have worked with someone or know someone that knows all the coaches. And we just kind of stayed in touch, and it just, kind of came together at the end, and I'm glad it did. I'm really excited to be here.
Last question, and just on your impression, you've obviously been around Purdue, you've been to, I don't know, when your days at Ball State, did you play, I don't know my schedule well enough, did you play any games in Ross-Ade when you were here? So you
At Illinois when I was
Yeah.
at GA years and years ago,
Yeah.
But no, we played it.
And that was what,
IU.
89 and?
89 and 90, yeah, 2 really fun years there.
Jeff George, the quarterback, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. And, but, you know, you have that situation where your impression of this place and looking at it, you know, you obviously want to get the winds coming in a direction, but everybody has an impression as you come in or about it as you take a job. But what have been your impressions looking in, taking the job, but also now having been here a whopping month? What do you see?
Well, like I said, the first impression I got of the place was that it seemed like a great desire of these kids to win. That was the first thing, because I was with them pretty much the first day and starting to talk, and then being around the coaches, and of course there's some new ones, but you know, everyone feels like they're on the same page wanting to get this done. You know, time to win is now. We want to win now. We're ready to win now. As far as I haven't been across campus much. I've been from my hotel to and back and forth, but as I've gotten out, unbelievable campus, and I haven't been to a basketball game. I almost went to one the other day, but I know that environment there. But everyone that I've come in contact with, whether a coach or a young man or support staff and everything, to me has been very professional, very, I mean, it's made it as easy a transition as I've ever had in my career. And I'm just, you know, like I said, I'm thankful to be here and excited to get going and excited to get out on the field.
Yeah, you'll find it a good place. That is for certain. Well, Coach, thanks so much for your time, and we'll look forward to getting to know you and in 2016 and beyond. We will take a short break. We're going to talk about that basketball stuff. If you got time Sunday night, a real good game, Purdue, Wisconsin, if you get the chance.
I would like that.
I would highly recommend that one.
Okay,
But it's
good.
going to be great. We're going to hit that subject and more with Brian Newbert for segment 2. And segment 3 will be Tom Dienhart and Kyle Charters will join us as well. And look forward to breaking down women's basketball, Big Ten tournament, a little football as well. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.